Here we are live, Jimmy D and the Wolf podcast. I think this is episode 68, is it? Just a second, let me double check what episode this is. Hard to believe, huh?
Yeah.
We've been doing this that long.
Time flies.
Yeah.
I was trying to straighten up my face before we went live.
Well, it does need some help. No.
I can thank my brother Ralphie for the crooked nose.
This is 68, yes. This
68.
is yeah. So, well, today I have three choices of wonderful topics to choose from.
Okay.
And actually, I can hear you. Go ahead and speak.
Yo.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I'm afraid of feedback. If feedback goes, I'll have to turn that off and go back to my headphones. So I have three candidate subjects today, Jimmy, and maybe our viewers can jump in. First one is sports, but it's not the sports that you and I often talk about. It's baseball's integrity crisis.
Okay.
League-wide batting average entering Friday's game was .237, the lowest mark since 1968. And we can talk about that, why that is, the cause for that. Baseball's already a slow game, and their fan base is aging, and younger folks don't want to wait around. And when you have offense is what is exciting. When you have a defensive struggle, you have pitchers staring down batters. Can you see your sons watching 3-4 hours of that?
In fact, they could care less about baseball. They don't care. It's hard to get them to watch basketball. They love football, but yeah.
So anyway, that's there's some chicanery going on there. There's some illegal things going on that's causing that. Pitchers are doing that. The second one I had is I ran across two articles, and I tried to print the one off and it didn't print. I don't know why. But two articles about murder cases. This is in the category of 40-year-old, what they used to have Friday night, you'd have 40 hours or something where they would talk about, these murder cases, and it's kind of in that category. These very, very old murder cases, closed cases, dead cases, how they were solved. Two completely different methods. And one of them was in the New York Times. One was just an article that came across my Unsolved Murders in New Jersey leads an investigator to test the theory, and he solved them. They happened in the early 70s. 1974 is when these murders happened, and he solved them. And then there was also an article from murders in the 50s that the guy solved. Different guy, completely different guy, unrelated case, different location. So if we want to talk about get into the murder mystery thing, we can do that. And the other subject that I thought I would throw out for your choice, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but I dug up the article that talked about world populations in 2100 and how China's population is going to be cut in half. I
like that one.
Do you? Okay.
I do, because I like it so much because I think along those lines now, and I never paid any attention to it before I started hanging out with you. And you started talking about demographs, like demographs predict the future. And I catch myself now talking to people, and there's a lot of fear with people. China's going to take over. And I'm like, well, not really, because they're not going to have the population to do the economic thing Like, I mean, on paper, it's absolutely right. Their economy is going to surpass us easily, but you have to have the workforce and the population in order to do it. So I think that subject's fascinating. We can touch on the other two as well, but
Well, just to touch on the baseball one, pitchers are using foreign substances on the ball to increase the RPMs by 25%. And it's making the ball jump in the strike zone, and batters can't hit it.
You know, when I was a boy, I was a huge fan. And it was the Cincinnati Reds, and there's a lot of Reds fans around here because it's one of the only pro teams that we have close. And then I kind of started liking the Braves because of Turner Broadcasting. The Braves were on every day, Atlanta Braves, because Ted Turner. And I collected baseball cards, and I had a little box that I got from a local orchard that I would keep all my favorite baseball cards in, and I wouldn't go anywhere without my favorite baseball cards. Literally, I'd take them in the store with me. And when they went on strike, it hurt my feelings so bad, and I was so mad that I haven't paid attention to baseball since.
Whoa, I missed what was the key point that happened? What was the action point?
They went on strike.
Oh, gotcha.
When they went on strike, for whatever reasons, I mean, I'm not saying who was wrong, who was right. I just know for me, in my teenage years, I was so upset about it that I turned my back on baseball. And I was a super fan, dude. I watched every Reds game that I could. If it was televised, I would watch it. I loved the Reds, the Barry Larkin, Eric Davis days. And once they went on strike, it was such a big part of me that I was really, really upset when they went on strike. And I'm like, I'll never watch baseball. I won't support them ever again. And I haven't.
Well, just to touch on it, to give and probably this may be the meat of it, and no reason to come back to it, but Moneyball now, baseball is all about stats, and something on my glasses. Baseball is all about stats, and they've got the radars, how fast the fastball is. Now they have a gun that tells them what the RPMs are, or the spin of the ball. And if it's above, and these new grips that they've got have allowed them to grip it tighter and put a 25% faster spin on it, which is about a 500 more RPM. And so by measuring the spins, the RPMs as the ball is going toward the plate, they can guess whether or not the guy's cheating. I mean, it's inexact, but that's the telltale side. And when it's spinning, it jumps. You had 25% more spins, it's going to jump about an inch or more when it gets to the strike zone, and that's enough to jump right over the bat or underneath the bat, right at the strike zone. Anyway, so that's that. But I am fascinated. Yeah, baseball I don't really care that much about, but the fact that they're sophisticated.
It started getting bad, like on the tail end of when I stopped watching it. And it was like Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco.
Yeah, they talked about the last scandal, the steroid scandal.
Right.
In the other direction.
Barry Bonds went from being like smaller than me to all of a sudden he's Hercules and he hits 70 home runs a year. But
yeah, so that was the last scandal they had.
Yeah.
Now they got this scandal going the other direction, and it's not exciting to the fans but it interests me that how cagey all these pitchers are, and they must have pitchers conferences where they get together. And how do you hide your material, and what's your secret material that you use? And
right. And it's funny because the part that makes me angry the most about it is, like, I remember the Barry Bonds thing when he got busted doing steroids. The part that makes me the maddest is, like, the old guys back in the day. You watch footage and they're like drinking beer and smoking cigarettes on the sideline, but those guys, they put up numbers and they worked really, really hard. And And now those numbers are being surpassed by people that are cheating. That's the part that bothers me the most. Like Barry Bonds breaking home run records from guys 40 years ago that really were probably 5 times the player he was. That's the part that kills me. And none of those records have a chance of staying. It's that way across the board. It's that way with the NFL. It's that way with the NBA. They make it more exciting, faster. And the biggest injustice is that the all-time greats, it's like you look at any sport. Well, who's the greatest football player ever? It's Tom Brady. Who's the greatest basketball player ever? It's Michael Jordan. Who's the greatest baseball player ever? It's probably some dude that's playing now. And it's like, really? They all of the greatest in all these sports just now came on the radar, and the 100 years they've been playing this game. That's the part that bothers me. It's that the Babe Ruths and the Hank Aaron's, and those guys weren't cheating. They were the greats, but their records are just shattered.
Yeah,
and it's that way in all the sports.
Baseball is a game of tradition more than probably other sports.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to get into this, let's get into it. Now this isn't an old report. This came out in 2019, Pew Report and United Nations. So it's not that old, but I just saw an article on it recently that grabbed my attention. And 80 years ago, we still have people who fought in World War II alive. They're dying off. There aren't many left. But 80 years ago, it wasn't that long ago. There were people who were adults 80 years ago who fought in wars. Our 1940 was 1941 when Pearl Harbor was bombed. It was 80 years ago, right? So 80 years from now is 2100. That's really not that long.
Right.
But if your population is cut in half over that period of time, well, the forces that does to your society, because that also means your average age is skyrocketing. Because the reason it's being cut in half is because the fertility rate has dropped like a rock. That means adult women is measured by the women because women give birth. How many births per adult women? And you need 2.1 to maintain your population. And the only way you're going to drop like that, unless you have unexpected deaths. But let's face it, our healthcare is continuing to get better no matter what country you're in. And so it's not going to be, unless we have another COVID-19, like a super COVID-19 that, like a Black Death, bubonic plague, that could happen. But these forecasts don't account for that. They're not anticipating that. They're anticipating just normal trends that we're having now. China's population will be cut in half. And that is going to just completely, hey, Steve, good to see you on here. We had a choice between 3 different subjects and you could have weighed in, but we've already chose our subject. So anyway, we're talking about demographics and how China is going to be, their population is going to be not quite half, but it's going to be half of what it is today in 2100. So right now, let's talk about 70 years ago today and 80 years from now, 2100. So 1950, 2020, and 2100. China's population was 554 in 1950. 554 million. China's population now is 1.44 billion. So more than doubled in 80 years. And look how that's changed their country. In 1950, they were a backwater, nothing. So by doubling their population, now they're on pace to take over the top economy in the world from the U.S., and they will by about 2030. They'll be 700,050 by 2100 is what people are forecasting now. That's half of where they are today. So the havoc that is going to do to their economy, because they're not going to have the working age people, and so many whole segments of the society are going to be upended. And what segment of the world is going to be growing? Most of them are in, Jimmy, did we talk about this before? What continent is going to get them all? Well, five out of six of the big growth areas.
Africa? It's Asia.
Africa. In 2100, the most highest population, Nigeria will be number 3. Congo, DR Congo, something Republic. I don't know what the DR stands for. Ethiopia, Tanzania. All these countries will be in the top 10. And none of them are in the top 10 today. Well, Nigeria is 206,000, so 206 million, my apologies. 206 million, and Nigeria will be larger than China in 2100. So by some forecasts. Now, this one I'm looking at right at this moment has China still being larger, but the one that I was reading from the other day and I tried to print off has China. See if I can find this and print that off. Regardless, China's population is going to decrease. And the good thing about for Americans, our population is forecasted to stay roughly the same or increase somewhat. So, of all the developed countries that are on this list, we're one of the exceptions of the developed countries, of the G7, the ones that are in the G7, or even the G20. We're the only ones that stay, well, China's in the G7, I guess. But we're the only ones who stay stable and grow a little bit, according to these forecasts, which speaks well because population up. I mean, in Japan right now, nobody's having babies, nobody's having kids, and all the centers that were for birth are now for taking care of old people because they also have the longest life expectancy in the world. So it's going to completely uprend the trends, and the average fertility rate, and the population in the world is going to start decreasing in 2100. Nobody's having babies. Even the countries that are growing rapidly. Over in Africa, they're having sex like rabbits and growing their population. So, but even they can't make up for the decrease in most of the rest of the world. So let's talk about average ages. The median age or the average age. The world's median age is expected to increase to 42 in 2100. It's 31 or now. That may not seem like much, but the average, I'm talking about, the median age, where 50% are above, 50% are below. A 10-year increase. That's going to change a lot of things. And it was 24 in 1950.
Wow.
So the median age doubled, almost doubled, 24 to 42. So 1950, we were a young world. 2100, we're going to be an old world as far as the median age. Starting in 2073, there will be more people 65 and older than under the age of 15. First time in his world history. Why is that? Because of fertility, Steve. Nobody's having kids and people are living longer. That's why. Number one reason driving all this is the global fertility rate is dropping.
I did my part.
You did. You had 3. The global fertility rate is expected to be 1.9 births per woman by 2100, and it's now 2.5 in the world. You need 2.1 to maintain your population, your per adult woman to maintain your population rate, generally speaking. Barring a bubonic plague type of thing or outbreak of war, things like that. And Africa is the only region to have strong population growth through the rest of this country. They're expected to increase by 3x, from 1.3 billion to 4.3 billion. That's almost 1.3. It's not quite round numbers.
You know what's funny, dude? Is you know what I hear when you say that? It's like there's gonna be a lot of really good music.
Yeah.
Seriously, my mind goes right there. It's like, what's gonna happen? All these people coming out of Africa. There's gonna be some good stuff to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, the Africans know how to make great music. Other trends. Europe and Latin America are expected to have declining populations by 2100. Europe will peak Europe's population is projected to peak It's 748 million in this year.
Wow.
2021.
We're going during its peak.
Oh, okay. Steve says, why, from a sociological standpoint, why aren't people having kids? Well, that's I know that in many countries it's expensive to have kids. You need, because it goes to most dual income. The wife has to work. Well, I don't have kids and I'm not married. Jimmy, can you comment on why aren't people not having kids today?
There's a lot of reasons. A lot of the young people that I talk to think of like having a kid is the worst thing that could possibly happen to them. Have a kid, settle down. You're kind of, it's the ball and chain financially and stuff. And as divorce rates raise and marriage rates go down, I think it's just a cultural thing in America. I can't, I don't know why it's happening in other parts of the world, but it's a lot of times people just make that decision. I mean, abortions are happening all the time, and I don't know. For me, it was always like I knew I was going to have kids one of these days. I mean, I wasn't in any kind of rush to do it, but it was like, yeah, of course, that's the dream is procreate. You want little kids that look like right, Steve, exactly.
Yeah, but I don't want to crap on millennials.
Well, I don't think it's crapping on anybody. It's just a difference. It's just a difference in mindset.
Well, it's an economic. I mean, if you studied economics, economists try to explain everything financially. Not everything can be explained financially, but my ex-partner had a saying, you've heard me say this before, it's always about the money. And there are some significant financial costs with trying to have kids and risks. And when they interview some of these young women, and all around the world, not just the US, they talk about the risk of the finance and they can't get daycare. Daycare kills them. I don't know how many times I've heard young women talk about how they can't get, Jeff, you're mean. You're mean, Jeff. Too busy tweeting, texting, and Googling to have kids. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to take that route. I mean, it is a huge risk. Daycare, both parents have to work, and daycare gets more and more expensive and scarce. Who was telling me where did I hear a conversation? They were saying the number of daycare in their area had completely decreased. Was that you? I can't remember where somebody was saying that. I was privy to a conversation. Was that Jimmy?
It's way out of hand.
I mean, so, what are you, and then I've heard some of the talks about what it costs for daycare, like the producer I work with, Chubb, he quit. They had, used to put his son in daycare, and he said it was more than their mortgage monthly. And so he said, well, I'm just going to stay home. And that's why when I cut my guitar parts, his 3-year-old son was screaming at the top of his lungs while I was playing my lead solos because he wanted attention, and I had to ignore it to try to get my guitar part cut.
People could always do what my parents did and just throw them in the backyard and let them raise themselves.
Well, that was a different generation. Yeah. That's the way it used to be. A woman was not, even the name. Now it's a stay-at-home mom. Back then it was the housewife. Just the title alone describes what the roles were. It was about, and what were all the commercials aimed at, getting the shirts wider when you do the laundry, pledge to get your furniture to shine more. There wasn't any commercials about how to be a better mom. The whole society was focused on exactly what you said. The kids are kind of out of sight, out of mind. We don't helicopter parent them. And not making no judgment for me on which is better, but it's definitely a big change. And now parents are afraid to let their kids do anything because they're afraid they don't want. And being a parent, I was going for a run the other day and I saw there's a bridge, and I saw a kid that was kind of playing at the edge of next to the bridge. Their water is running underneath there. And as I ran by, I remember the thought went in my mind, what if that kid falls in? I mean, it's not even my kid. I don't even know who it was. And I was like, man, you're being too too
The difference.
risky with your kid, you know? Imagine if it's your parent, if you're the parent and the kid falls in and drowns. I mean, you couldn't live with yourself. So I understand how, not being a parent, but
yeah, it is a different mindset, man. I catch myself with my kid. I watch my kids like a hawk, dude. And I remember coming home with like a broken thumb one time, and my parents being like, "Your shirt's broke." You know what I'm saying? Back then it was just like, walk it off. You know, you'll be all right. Rub some dirt on it.
yeah. So that's fascinating. I just read that right now. Europe's population is peaking as I'm speaking.
Wow.
Peaking as I'm speaking.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. 2021, Europe's population. Well, I know Italy. My favorite country in the world is Italy, and they're going to disappear. You know, nobody's having kids, and their population is decreasing. But the country with the lowest fertility rate in the world is South Korea. So I go to Korean food as often as I can because, you know, one day they're all going to disappear. There won't be any because they're all going to disappear.
How to make that barbecue? We're gonna have to figure.
Population in Asia is going to decline. In 2055, it's going to start declining. It's going to go up from 4.6 billion in 2020 to 5.3, and then it's going to decline in 2055. In North America, okay, this is explanation. Migration from the rest of the world is expected to be the primary driver of continued population growth. So, you know, that's if we allow the immigrants to come in. That's why this forecast has the U.S. population at 434 million in 2100, but the other chart that I had it just in the mid 350s. So there's some variations on projections depending on who's the projecting. I mean, it's hard to project 80 years old. But 6 countries are projected to account for half of the world's population growth through the end of the century, and 5 are in Africa. And those countries that are growing the most as far as raw numbers are Nigeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Angola, along with 1 non-African country, Pakistan. Wow. And so 5 of those will be in the top 10. And the thing that I found interesting, because I remember reading an article about 10, 15 years ago that's saying that Indonesia, which is a Muslim country, was expanding at a rapid rate. And, you know, the article was pretty death and doom, saying that, you know, Muslims are going to take over the world. All of us who are not Muslims are going to be in a huge minority. That was the tenor of that article. And I was happy to see that Indonesia's population is actually projected to decrease. In the previous report I saw, this particular report has them increasing slightly, but not nearly at the level of the African nations. India is projected to surpass China as the world's most populous country by 2027. 2027, that's only 6 years from now. And between 2020 and 2100, 90 countries are going to lose population. 2/3 of all the countries in Europe. I mean, so Europe is going to be you know, if you know, you lose people that are in the 21 to 50-year-old range, which is where the workforce is. How are you productive? How are you keeping your economy humming? Yeah, I mean, maybe the numbers are there, but if they're all in retirement homes, what's going to be your productivity? Where's that going to come from? Where's the new Tesla going to come from? I mean, it's not going to be somebody in a nursing home. Where's the, you know, I'm just trying to think of innovations. You know, you still may have the population, but it's what are those population doing? I mean, if you don't have if they're all older and maybe retiring or, you know, thinking about their end years, I am a believer in, you know, not retiring. I mean, I'm continuing. I'm taking on like a 3rd career right now, being a music artist. I was a corporate American, then I was an entrepreneur, and I'm a music artist, and I'm not slowing down. But the average person probably isn't going to do that as hard as I'm going on it.
Right.
So, I mean, it's good. I saw some. I'm sorry, I did not see these articles. My apology. Oh, Jeff, it was behind my camera and I did not see it. My apologies for not seeing these comments. Jeff says he's not mean. Steve says he's just curious about sociological issues. Steve says watching society move as a group is interesting to him. Robotics is a way to replace workforce. Yeah, definitely. Robotics could do a lot of the manual labor.
Like it or not.
So yeah, I mean, so maybe my thinking is too narrow-minded. Maybe you can still, even without the workforce, you can still, have the production. So yeah, right, Steve?
I think that's to the advantage of our country because, when it gets to that point, it's all about innovation. And who's going to innovate more than the country that literally has every kind of person ever made? I'm a firm believer in that, man. I mean, that's the whole thing that makes us the greatest country in the world, is because we have everybody. We have,
Well, yeah, that's the melting pot theory. If we hold by that, I mean, if we continue in that path, I think that there are forces in our country that would like to slow down the flood of immigrants. So if we continue on that path,
it's fascinating stuff for sure. Especially China. I mean, that's going to be a game changer.
Steve, you're coming up with gems. He says pro members can work up until 80 years as it's less physically demanding. Great point. Yes. So, and then you have robots build the robots. Well, seriously, you have the robots build the robots, so there's no physical labor required. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if the average age is 50. Your mind is still sharp. Yeah. Your point is valid, Steve. I see that. I validate your opinion. Definitely. Jeff said, I'm not mean. I'm informed. You are informed. I know you are, Jeff.
We need to have him back.
We do. So, in Latin America, and then here's the thing that shocks me. Yeah, they do now. They've trained robots to build robots. Absolutely. Yeah, I know that's a thing. Yeah, you don't need human beings to do that. So, Latin America, I always think is. I watched a robot open a beer can, and I thought that was a greatest leap in technology. That's actually pretty difficult to do, I would say. That's a pretty big achievement for the robotics builder. Here's an interesting one. Latin America and the Caribbean are going to age tremendously. They're going to have the oldest population of any world region by 2100. That shocks me because I don't know. I just have this image of the Latin Americans being all young people.
Sure. Me too.
So the median age, according to this article, it says in 2020, the median age of the U.S. is 38, and the median age of Brazil is 33, Argentina 32, Mexico 29. That's all young, a lot younger than we are. But by 2100, all three of those nations will be a lot older. The median age will be 51 in Brazil, 49 in Mexico, and 47 in Argentina. And the U.S. will be 45. So. And Colombia is going to go from, in 1965, their median age was 16, and in 2100, it's going to be 52. And nobody having kids in Colombia, it looks like.
They're all doing cocaine.
Japan will have the highest median age of any country in the world in 2020. Right now, Japan has the the highest median age of 48. That blows my mind. 48? It's going to be 55 in 1965.
What's causing that in Japan?
Nobody having kids. Nobody's having kids. And part of the reason is I live in Japan. I know Japan fairly well, although I haven't been there in years. So I don't know what change it's done in the last 10 or 15 years. I think the last time I was there was 2008 or so. But Japan, they're very, when it comes to gender equality in the workplace, they're like in the 50s. Like, Mad Men. Have you ever watched the show Mad Men?
Mm-hmm.
There's no women executives. That's what Japan's at. They're 70 years behind when it comes to female equality in the workplace, and the women don't want to, and the gender, they don't want those traditional gender roles. They want to be empowered because they can see it on the internet and TV, and they don't, because you can't have a kid. You can get married and still work in Japan, but once you have a kid, you can't. They will tell you to go home and quit your job.
Wow.
You're an office lady anyway. You're not an executive. You can't be a professional. You can be an office lady, and you have to use your high-pitched voice when you answer the phone because that's, professional. That's what they want. They think that's attractive. So anytime they have the girl with the highest pitched voice talking in a falsetto, konnichiwa, genki desu ka? Like that. But once they get married, they're saying you can't work here anymore. Once they get married, they can, but if they get pregnant, they're done. They got to go home. And a lot of them don't want to be limited like that. And so they just said, hey, I'm not getting married. I'm not having kids. And they haven't done anything to change that up. And some countries have done things to try to increase their fertility rate. France has bumped up the fertility rate by a couple, maybe half a percent. They've done some significant things. They've had daycare centers, free daycare, and they've had financial incentives if you have a kid, either tax breaks or even just straight out cash if you have kids. I know France is one that I've read that has done a lot to boost their fertility rate. Japan, they talk about it, wring their hands, but their society, it's 1,500-year-old society. They've been doing things this way a long time. Very proud society. I love Japan. I love the culture. I love it, so much about it, but they're very hard to change. And so.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of it has to be structured in such a way that women are going to want that, the women want it.
Well, yeah, Steve, shaving their armpits. Yeah, Japanese women have been, I think Japanese women have been shaving their armpits for probably 40 years. I think it's Eastern European women. They were probably the last holdouts in that area, based in my thoughts, but I could be wrong. So yeah, in 2065, Japan's going to have a median age of 55. And then it'll decrease by 1 year by 2100 to 54. So I don't know what's going to happen. Are people going to be having more kids, or are people going to be dying off? What makes it go down by 1 year? But Albania will have the highest median age of 61 in 2100. Albania, another European country. So, France. Yes, you are correct. Yes. The childbirth is up. That's the armpit comment. Yes, you are right, Steve. Yeah, I think you're correct. French women are famous for not.
We figured out why, huh?
Yes. That's funny. That's a good one, Steve. Thank you for clarifying. So anyway, in this particular projection has the world populations compared. 1950, we'll go down the top 10 for in 1950, China 550 million, India 370 million, US 160 million, Russia 103 million, Japan 83 million, Germany 70, Indonesia 70, Brazil 54, UK 51, Italy 47. 2020, China number one at 1.4. That's almost 3 times, from 550 to 1.4 billion. India 1.38. They went from 376 to 1.38. Oh my gosh, India having lots of kids. In fact, I read an article today about there was a guy that died, and he had the biggest family in the world in India, and he was a unique Christian, because most of India is they are Hindu. Hindu. I was have to think between Pakistan is Muslim, because that's when Gandhi, they separated the Hindu and the Muslim. And there's this, in this particular corner of India, there's a unique sect, and they believe that God wants them to have numerous wives. And this guy had 39 wives, 78 kids, and he died. 78 kids. He just died. So he made the international news. So India, I mean, he helped bring this up. This number went from 376 to 1.4 billion in 70 years. I mean, that's a big comeuppance. That's U.S. 331, basically doubled. Indonesia 274, Pakistan, Brazil, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Russia, and Mexico is the top 10 in 2020. China, India, U.S., Indonesia, Pakistan, Brazil, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Russia, Mexico. 2100, India is number 1, China is number 2, Nigeria number 3, U.S. number 4. So we dropped from 3 to 4. Pakistan number 5, and they were number 5, so they didn't change. Congo wasn't even on the list, 362, man. Indonesia dropped from 4 to 6. Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Egypt. Even Egypt. Egypt wasn't on the list either. So, demography is destiny, is the saying. It's hard to go against my
Right.
number one.
Yeah, for sure.
My number one thought or example is, I remember when my Japanese friend, and I said this example before, was completely saying that Korea was going to overtake Japan in size, and I said, "You're crazy. The population is 1/3 the size.
Yeah.
How are they going to have a bigger economy? That means they have to be 3 times more productive. I mean, you could be 20% more productive, maybe as a nation on average, maybe 10%. But you're not going to be 3 times more productive. Not going to happen." And so, he just looked at me. He was like trying to process what I told him. And now Korea is decreasing. So, of course, Japan is as well. So both of them are on the downhill side of their population and their economies. Although Korea is killing it when it comes to pop culture. Their K-pop is just...
Well, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this particular podcast, is if any Koreans hear this or watch it, please feel free to send us any barbecue recipes that you might have, in case we don't want any of that old knowledge to go by the wayside.
Absolutely. We love our Korean barbecue, 100%. All right. Well,
pretty cool stuff, man.
Is it? Yeah. I mean, I find it fascinating, but I wonder if other people, their eyes glaze over when I talk about it. But to me, it's fascinating because the world changes so significantly based on that.
Coming a little bit.
What's that?
Nowadays, you can kind of actually see it coming a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, even Russia. Russia is in the top 10 list for population in 2020, and they're nowhere. I know they have a population problem as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can try to hang on to your empire, but if your population is going down and aging, those are just forces that you could overcome them. Yes, like Steve said, older people can do programming, and you could use, there are ways you could countervail that, but it's just more of the forces that you have to fight against that others may not have to. All right, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Tell me about your shirt. What are you wearing there? What is that? Acorn, squirrel, acorn? What's it mean?
I have no idea what it means. I just really, really like the shirt. I think
I do.
cool. I watch them in my yard all the time. I've always kind of had an affinity for them. I just thought the shirt was neat. And it's funny because everybody has a different meaning. They'll be like, like it means something, you know, like there's some kind of sexual connotation. I'm like, I don't know.
Just a squirrel trying to get a nut. Yeah.
Yes, I don't
All it
know.
is.
Maybe that's what it is. I just think it's cool because it's got a squirrel on it.
It's a very sharp shirt. I like the colors, you know, very stark.
I just think it's neat.
It is neat. It's a great one. All right. Well, Steve, thank you for hanging with us and sharing your knowledge and your viewpoints is very valued and appreciated. And those of you watching on the replays, we thank you. Leave us some comments. As to subjects you'd like to see us do it. And we're going to have to get Fedge back on here again.
Absolutely.
So.
Yep.
All right.
See you next time.
See you next time.